The Trump campaign would prefer that you think that they are appalled by the jokes made at their Madison Square Garden rally. One spokesperson, Danielle Alvarez, says this joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. Yeah, follow-up question, but doesn't it kind of, doesn't it a little bit? Actually, I don't know that it perfectly represents it because it is, after all, still a joke, a racist joke and a historic, an ignorant joke, but it's a joke. Trump says that sort of stuff. He doesn't seem to be joking. He's worse, actually. Remember, after the horrible hurricane hit Puerto Rico, he did a lot of terrible stuff. He talked about big water, ocean water, huge. He threw napkins at people. He also tweeted such poor leadership ability by the mayor of San Juan and others in Puerto Rico who are not able to get their workers to help. They want everything to be done for them when it should be a community effort. 10,000 federal workers now on island, capital I, island, doing a fantastic job. So they're lazy. Their island has been destroyed. You can't even get them to do anything. We have to do it for the. Can you imagine him saying that about any other group of Americans? Yeah, maybe at this point you probably can. California, New York, a few other places, Detroit, Atlanta. Okay, it's a bad point. I can see him saying that about some other groups of Americans, but not Americans that would go to his rallies. And by the way, Carolyn Leavitt, who I have to imagine she has like a Portrait of Dorian Gray type situation going on as her soul is slowly sucked out of her body from having to defend the indefensible. She goes on the news to say the crowd didn't mind, which is not necessarily the defense that you think it is. Like, yeah, it's part of the problem, actually, Karen Leavitt.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
And she says it's one joke in poor taste. Look, it was a comedian who made a joke in poor taste. Obviously, that joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or our campaign. And I think it is sad that the media will pick up on one joke that was made by a comedian rather than the truths that were shared by the phenomenal list of speakers that we had. The crowd, they didn't mind. Again, it was a diverse group of people. I'm gonna need a fact check on that. The joke fell flat, but the crowd was there because they know who President Trump is. And they know he wants to be a president for all Americans. Well, maybe not the Americans who are the enemy of the people, the enemy of the within. We'll get to that. But was it a joke? Because like even just focusing on Tony Hinchcliffe, he talked about how Hispanics don't use birth control and they need to. Jews are cheap, Palestinians are rock throwers. And then he called out a black man in the audience with a reference to watermelon. I think he said something about carving watermelon or something like that. So it wasn't really one joke. Another speaker called Harris a prostitute with pimp handlers.
Yep.
Different sort of racist thing. Again, not really a joke. So that was kind of bad. And then you tied in, as Francesca said earlier, with Trump's calls for action that are not jokes. When he says his election day will be a liberation day because America has been conquered by illegal aliens and he will liberate us from the conquering army of scary black and brown people who have taken over all of America. So I don't think it was just one joke. Maybe I'm overly sensitive, Francesca.
They knew exactly what they were doing. This comedian's set was definitely vetted. They chose Madison Square Garden for a reason. They chose it because it has hints of the 1939 America First Bund rally, again, which basically replace all of the groups of people that you talked about and just focus on Jews. I mean, amazing that he did the throwback and called Jews cheap and whatnot. But it wasn't such light stereotypes back then. It was specifically Jews are taking our jobs. Jews are replacing us, which, gee, where have I heard Jews will not replace us? Charlottesville 2017. And I think we need to remember this, John, as the last, since then, right? The last 7 years, we haven't seen a lot of the same Unite the Right rally groups. They'll come out once in a while. There'll be some Patriot Prayer movements. They'll all jump out of a U-Haul and terrorize a particular community. But they haven't had one grand gathering in the way that they used to because they learned a lesson, which was we scare people. Our Nazi ideals are incredibly terrifying to the average American. Maybe we should rein it in a bit, right? And yet you have these kinds of events where no, people were clearly not dressed in white hoods or dressed in their khakis and their gaiters. But this is exactly what it was meant to evoke. They've learned how to JD Vancify it all. In other words, like normal wash it and basically say, no. We're not Nazis or Klansmen, or we don't believe that, Jews will replace us. And we don't believe, except we're going to do this exact same kind of rally, talk about who's poisoning our blood, ruining America, America for Americans in this place. And so the jokes just fit right in, and the backlash is steep because the backlash is real. The last thing we need to understand about Puerto Rican voters is that they're often pulled apart from other voters in the Caribbean who are of the Caribbean diaspora, Cubans and Venezuelans, right? People who are communists, people who are socialists, people who are invading our country. Puerto Ricans, just like every group of migrants or immigrants to this country, are always they're definitely on their way to whiteness. And I'm surely there are many Republican Puerto Ricans, right? The problem comes when you have someone like Tony or like Stephen Miller who are like, give up the game a little bit, who say, yeah, we're not just talking about Venezuelan migrants. We're also kind of talking about all brown people. We're talking about you. And yes, thanks for the reminder that Donald Trump absolutely views Puerto Ricans as S-hole, people from S-hole countries.
Yeah, 100%. And sure, right now they're American citizens, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know. Birthright citizenship is a thing now. They're talking about taking that away. So who the hell knows? When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?